Bam, man. Once again, it's your boy Tony on that hit show. A stories written by a current prisoner. Real quick, man, if there's anything you could ever take from any of these messages, it's take this real quick. Listen to your boy, please, man. Because I know so many of you are guilty of this, including myself at one point. Do not drink and drive, man. I cannot emphasize that enough, man. I cannot elaborate, man. And please hear me when I tell you, do not drink and drive. And that goes for smoking too. Do not operate a vehicle. Do not get behind the wheel if you're under the influence of alcohol or any type of drugs, man. Please listen to your boy. You will literally wreck your life. When you're doing that, man, you're literally throwing the dice and you're gambling with your life. You may think it's all good. You may think you're more than able to drive. But let me tell you, man, a lot of people have lost their lives and a lot of people have picked up life sentences for doing exactly that. So just think about that the next time you go home from a bar, the next time you go out to eat with your wife, and you think that just 4 or 5 beers ain't gonna do nothing to you, man. Just please think twice, man. Do not drink and drive. And for you youngsters out there, man, take care of your license. You know, this life, like my mom used to tell me, man, esta vida da muchas vueltas. So you just never know where you might end up. You might have a good job, and it might come to getting a company vehicle. However, you might not be able to get that company vehicle, and they might give that position to somebody else, all simply because you messed up your license as a young man. So it's little things like that in life, man, that might come at you, man. For you youngsters, man, just take care of your license. That being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it.
So what do they call you?
Well, my name is Kendra, but I do actually have a nickname that they've called, some people have called me, and it's Kirby.
What are you incarcerated for? How long is your sentence?
I am actually incarcerated for a DUI accident that caused 2 fatalities, and they charged me with second-degree murder. My sentence right now is 30 to life.
30 years to life.
Yes.
May I ask where you from, like on the streets?
Out on the streets, I'm from Lake County, but I caught my case up in Shasta County, in California, basically.
Can you tell me why is it that there's so many women that go missing, or people just in general, up in that Shasta County area?
You know, as far as Shasta County is concerned, from what I understand, is I-5 is basically connected to Redding, and Redding is also like a straight shot to the Reno area, and from what I understand is those are like some of the main highways and roads that are affected a lot by human trafficking and things like that.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Would you be able to take me there to that day, you know, that when your whole life turned upside down? You know, I can only imagine how that must feel. You say that you're serving a 30-year life sentence. I can only imagine how that must feel, because literally that can happen to anybody out there, I feel like. So would you be able to break down exactly what it is that happened on that unfortunate day?
So, unfortunately, there's a lot that I don't remember due to the fact that it was a very bad car accident. You know, really it's kind of hard on where to really start, because there is a lot that goes into what I was going through and things that were going on at that time for me personally. You know, I was very busy. You know, I was working almost full time. I was a full-time student. You know, my younger sister was living with me at the time as well, and I was taking care of her, as well as taking care of my dad, who had recently he was hit by a car, actually, and I was taking care of him. You know, so I was going through a lot, and, you know, I feel like just a lot of things kind of came crashing down. I wasn't in the right state of mind as far as, like, mentally speaking. I was also going through a lot of things, which I was supposed to be getting married around that, like, about 9 months before it happened, and that unfortunately fell apart, you know. So there was a lot of things going on that were very traumatic for me as a young woman trying to figure out, you know, the real world. You know, I was only 25 at the time, and over the 3 years on that were unfortunate, and that night I can't really say too much because, like I said, I don't remember. It was a very bad accident. I did have a concussion and stuff like that, and so I really don't remember a lot of things. But from what I do understand is that I got into an argument with my dad that day. He's an addict as well and an alcoholic, and I was trying to help him get sober. So there was a lot of things that were, I guess, emotional that day, and I think that's what had a big part in it, I guess you could say. I can't really even say a definite thing because there's just so much,
I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry, Kendra, leading up to this unfortunate event that you were going through a lot of things. And like I said, that happens to a lot of people. Life hits them, and everybody is fighting their own battles. You might look at someone, they look completely normal, but behind that face, they're fighting their own demons. So I can only imagine what you went through. But from what you remember, where were you? What were you doing? Do you remember what you were drinking? Where were you intending on going? Like, who was with you, or anything like that?
Well, so I mean, what I can speak on is from what I remember is I do remember, having a hard time at work. And I did mention to a couple coworkers, I'm going to go meet up with you and have a drink, which is normal. You just kind of go out with some friends and have a drink and hang out for a little while. And, I wasn't even normally like someone who would go out and drink at bars and go out and party like that. I'm more of like a homebody, I guess you could say. I'm more of a let's go somewhere and, be safe, and it is something that is so out of character for me to make a choice like I did that night, and I honestly can't even say what it was that put me behind the wheel. It's unfortunate, and like I said, I really don't remember a lot, and so sometimes I sit there and I think like I was put in this scenario, like how did it happen? I don't know. It is very unfortunate, I've been told things. I was with a friend, supposedly a friend. It's hard to say because if I was with somebody who really cared about me, I feel like if it was that bad, they would have taken my keys from me or helped me get home. And I'm not putting any kind of blame on anybody. It's just that I thought I was with somebody who would have my back in a way. I take full responsibility for the choices that I made, and I've made it in the court system as well. I went into my trial conceding guilt, for everything except for the murder charge, and that was what I was really mainly fighting because I've never been in trouble before, and they wanted to try to prove a specialized knowledge that I had, basically that I did what I did knowing it was bad and did it anyways, which isn't the case, Like I said, it's something that's very out of character for me, so, but like I said, it's very unfortunate. I don't remember a lot, and that's one of the hardest parts for me because I don't even remember what happened.
Would you be able to take me there to that day that you woke up, from a concussion or from being knocked out, and who was the first person you had contact with, and when did you find out that as a result of this unfortunate incident that people had actually lost their lives?
Well, I think I don't remember things, but there's little glimpses that I do remember, little flashes. I just wouldn't really be able to give you a timeline as far as like when it had happened. But the only like real flashback that I have was when I was in the hospital and I was handcuffed to a gurney, and I actually woke up without any clothing on and kind of freaked out a little bit, handcuffed to the gurney. Then I lose consciousness and in my memory, and then the next thing that I can say that I remember is I woke up. At first I didn't realize where I was, but I was in a cement holding cell, and I was wrapped up in a wool blanket, and my back was fractured and my body was very sore, so I woke up in a lot of pain, didn't know where I was, didn't know what was happening, and the first person I came into contact with was another prisoner, but somebody who was mentally unstable, and so it was a very frightening situation, and then I realized where I was. One of the officers had come and told me I can use my phone call, which I had called my family, and the officer right there actually told me, he specifically said, you killed 2 people, and I kind of freaked out a little bit. You know, I was confused. I started crying, things like that. And so I was able to call my family, and they kind of told me what happened, and I just was beside myself. You know, I really didn't remember or knew what had happened. You know, I had no recollection, and so that kind of took me into like an out-of-body experience, you know. So, and then I was able to bail out a couple of days later because the original charge that they had given me was...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And so I was out on bail for 30 days, and then they had come back and picked me up on the murder charges on a warrant. So...
Initially, why did they give you the wrong charges?
Well, because, you know, when something like this happens, it is a gross vehicular charge, you know, and so the thing is that they tried so hard to prove that I had some specialized knowledge, and which was what allowed them to charge me with the murder charges. I'm not sure. I mean, usually I talk to people, and something that not a lot of people know is that there is something called a Watson admonition on our driver's license.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
So, well, and we only have 60 seconds, but I could call you back.
Yeah, call me back, please. So when did you find out more about the victims, and can you tell me who the victims were, and how old were they?
So when I was on bail, you know, my mom was very concerned for me, of course, you know, and she tried to make me promise not to look up my victims and go searching for them because she knows that it would affect me. You know, I'm not the type of person that ever wants to hurt anyone, you know, and she knows that it would affect me. But the way that I saw it was I felt like I owed it to them to know them. You know, I immediately came to the conclusion that, you know, the rest of my life, because I survived, and even though this was the fault of my choices that I made, I need to live my life for 3 people now instead of just myself. So I took it upon myself to look them up, and their names were Lacey Wawa Jackson and Erica Young. And when I looked them up, I can honestly say that they're the kind of people that I probably would have been friends with if I would have met them in a different circumstance. And, you know, they were very involved with things, very positive things, and it's the same kinds of things that I like to be involved in. So it affected me in a very serious way to the point where I want to just do better.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I want to do better things, you know, with myself, and, you know, whether I'm in the prison system or when I do hopefully get to go home, I can be involved in things like that as well, like just positive, you know, some kind of change in the right direction, whether it be the system or just anything, you know.
While you're going to court, did you actually get to see the victim's family, and what was their reaction? Did you ever have any interaction with the victim's family?
Well, I did get a letter in the mail, you know, at first from one of the victim's sisters, and, you know, I expect the anger and the grief, of course. You know, grief, there's levels to it, there's steps to it, and anger is a huge part in it. But the letter that I got from one of the sisters was actually a letter of a little bit of understanding. Of course, there's grief, you know, just because she came from understanding addiction and understanding substance abuse and understanding that.
What exactly were these charges, these new charges that they set on you?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. It was just kind of cutting out a little bit.
Would you be able to tell me these list of new charges? What exactly were these charges, and what did they believe you were under the influence of?
Well, you know, they knew it was pretty evident that, you know, I was under the influence of alcohol. You know, that's what they deemed it as due to them doing a blood test and the other signs of it, of course. You know, I think I was mentioning this before, but one of the things that they had used to charge me with the murder charges was the Watson admonition that's on the back of the driver's license application. So the Watson admonition is basically what you have to sign when you get prior DUIs. It's something that says along the lines of you acknowledge and understand that driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol or both is dangerous to human life, and if in doing so somebody dies, I could be charged with murder. That's just a summarized version of what it says. And since we all sign for that, that is something that can be used against you. It's not something that is always used against people because there's clearly other cases where people get, 5 years, 10 years, where the life sentence isn't evident in their sentencing. But that's something that they used against me because I signed for my driver's license application. But they also used the fact that I worked at Red Robin. Although I wasn't a bartender, I was just a server. So they were kind of pushing that I had that specialized knowledge, that, I was trained in extra areas that the normal person isn't.
Three-way call alert.
Everyone, I don't know, it's the part that everybody kind of has that, like, okay, it's not good to drink and drive, but nobody's going to go out there and say, you know what, today's the day that it's going to be really bad and I'm going to do it anyway. Nobody says that, but that's something that it seemed like they were trying to push in my direction, in order to push for the second-degree murder charge. There was also things that I am now to understand that when they took me to the hospital, I was very combative. I was out of it. So they ended up giving me to sedate me and calm me down. And yet with those, as well as alcohol in my system, they were still allowed to, they did it anyways, where they questioned me and then they used my statements against me from what I said that evening. And I guess I said things that implicated myself as far as supposedly having some kind of extra knowledge as far as drinking and driving and all of that. The way that I see it and from what I've learned, I look a lot into like the law library and I ask a lot of questions and, there's a lot of things that I feel like weren't done correctly, but that's where it comes with me being in the courts now and trying to file habeas corpus and find a lawyer I just need some help, but that's just kind of where it is with the murder charge,
So there was no type of bargaining, there was no type of deals being presented, anything like that?
So, no, the only deal that I understand was offered was the 30 to life, because technically with the way that they had charged me, I would have, if they gave me the worst, it could have been 30 to life plus 10 years, but they ran the 10 years concurrent, and so technically it would have been like 40 years to life, but they gave me the 30 to life deal, which I did not accept. I wanted to counter offer, but the lawyer that I had at the time, she just kept telling me that the DA was not going to accept anything that didn't have life at the end of it. So that's pretty much where I was at. So I was left with going to trial and hoping that, a jury panel could see things for what they were, And
where's your perspective on that, Kendra? Do you feel that is a reasonable amount of time that you've been sentenced to, or do you feel maybe that's a little absurd? Of course, as you mentioned before, some people have gotten less time for similar incidents, or even violent crimes have gotten less.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I have a hard time with feeling like, or giving an opinion on what someone deserves. Obviously, for myself and personally speaking, I'm going to fight for my freedom, basically, As far as the life sentence, the way that I was charged and the way that I was tried and the way that things were done, I wasn't obviously capable of appreciating the consequences of my actions at that moment. Because when it comes to alcohol, nobody is in the right state of mind, especially with, what my blood alcohol content was that evening. It was if anybody looks it up, it was pretty high, which I don't understand as well. Sorry. I'm just, it's a lot talking about all of this.
No, I can imagine, Kendra. Like I said, this can happen to literally anybody. That's why I don't blame you. I don't look at you like you're a cold-hearted criminal. I don't look at, you're literally the person next door, I can tell you, the people who are listening right now, more than likely they themselves have taken upon themselves to get behind the wheel while under the influence, whether it's just a little beer here at work, whether it's a little gathering at work, whether it's going out to eat at a restaurant with friends and family, and you can have a margarita, no big deal. It can happen to anybody. Anybody.
Right.
That's what's crazy about this case.
It is an unfortunate thing, and it really can happen to anybody. And the thing with our society is that, especially Americans, we normalize alcohol and drinking. I mean, you drive down the road, especially on the freeway, every other bulletin board or every other, it has to do with alcohol or gambling, and casinos and drinking. And it's something that's normalized, and especially the drinking limit. Who's to say that you're capable of making the right decisions, even at a .08 level, And I'm not somebody to make excuses even for myself or make excuses for anyone, because we make the choices that we make regardless. Whether it be the choice it was to lead up to going to drink or things like that. But I just feel like there are other things that play a part, especially with our society or even our circumstances with what we're surrounded by. There's a lot of people who grow up where drinking is normal. And it's unfortunate because it's one of those things that when you are under the influence, no matter what you have, you are not making sound, responsible decisions.
What do you feel is the hardest thing about serving this life sentence?
The hardest part about serving this life sentence is knowing that what brought me here is what took the lives of 2 other people. That's the hardest part. Is waking up every day feeling like, why do I get to wake up? Why? Why did they have to pass away? Whether I feel like no matter where I'm at, this circumstance is a life sentence within itself. Whether I have to serve that in prison, whether I'm at home, in a group home, or in a program, or anywhere, it's something I'm going to live with for the rest of my life. And that changed me entirely, irrevocably changed me. And I struggle with that every day, but I've gotten to a point where I have to recognize that thought and those feelings for what they are, respect them for what they are, and know that now I have to do something a little bit better every day. Like I said in the beginning, is to live a life that's good enough for 3 people, not just one. And when I do get to embrace my freedom, it's going to be in the names of Erica and Lacey. It's not going to be just about me. It's going to be about Lacey and Erica and everyone else who's lost their lives to something like this, and even those who were the cause of it. We kind of need to come and be better and almost embrace what happened as a wake-up call. Wake-up call to something that we can do that's better. Even if I help one person, that I know that I'm doing my job now. I want to make it my goal that I'm going to save more lives than I've ever harmed. And that's what I wake up every day praying for.
If you were to talk to someone right now who has those tendencies of getting underneath the influence, whether it's drinking and driving, whether it's smoking or, being high and driving, what would you tell that person?
Well, the first thing I think I would say was for them to think about the next time that happens, or imagine that it's somebody else and they end up harming someone that they love. What if it's someone else and they take the life of someone that they love? Because it could easily happen. And if somebody wants to come back and say they don't have anyone they love, you know, I would just say to think about the consequences of what it could take you away from. Because no matter what, it's going to hurt somebody, whether it's yourself or someone else. But even someone who feels like they don't have anybody, it's going to hurt somebody. And to think about that, you know, think about the consequences of what it's going to take you away from in your life as well. You know, if we want to strive for a better world, it starts with ourselves. It starts with you. Just to even make a little difference in the corner of this world, homes and views to make things better for the next generations and for the world that we live in now. We need to make it better.
I want to thank you so much, Kendra, for taking the time out of your day and doing this interview. And I hope somebody out there that's listening will learn from this and not make the same mistakes, because, like I said, it can happen to anybody. It can happen to you, whoever's listening.
Right.
Thank you, Kendra.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.